Grok loved the quiet rhythm of his life. The sun rising over the mist-draped valley, the soft snuffling of his pet boar, Truffles, hunting for tasty roots, and, most importantly, the rich, dark smell of freshly turned soil wafting from his flower beds, dahlias as big as his head, blood-red poppies, and delicate bellflowers whose petals echoed the sunrise. His thick green fingers, normally clumsy with anything delicate, held an unexpected grace when coaxing a stubborn seed to life. The occasional grunt of effort as he pulled out a stubborn weed was the only sound that broke the tranquility. This was all Grok wanted: peace, a good harvest of mushrooms for dinner, and to finish weaving a new basket for Truffles to sleep in. That peace shattered like pottery beneath a boot. A scream ripped through the mist, high and shrill as a hawk's cry. Human, but more importantly, female. Grok knew from the few encounters with passing traders that human females brought nothing but noise, chaos, and the distinct expectation that he ought to be carrying a large weapon instead of a trowel. He sighed, shoving a hand through his shaggy hair. He really wasn't in the mood for trouble, but those screams sounded urgent. Shoving his gardening tools in his apron, Grok ambled up the slope, Truffles waddling hopefully at his heels in case the screaming human turned out to be edible. He found her tangled in a thorn bush, more accurately, tangled in what remained of her dress after its encounter with the thorns. It had once been a fine green silk, the colour of new spring leaves, judging from the remnants flapping around her in the breeze. Now it resembled a half-eaten salad, and the girl didn't see him. Her eyes, huge in a tear-streaked face the creamy colour of fresh milk, were fixed on the track behind her. Grok followed her gaze. His heart lurched, not from fear, but annoyance. A group of bandits, 6 of them, were lumbering up the well-worn path that led to his valley. They looked rough, dirty, and carried a lot of very sharp-looking weapons. Grok really disliked sharp-looking weapons. They tended to find their way into his flesh. This day was feeling less and less peaceful by the moment. The girl noticed him gawking, shrieked again, and scrambled backward into the thorn bush, ripping her dress even more. "Get away from me, you brute," she screeched, voice cracking. "Just wait, my father will—" "Ah, your father will likely offer them a tidy reward to be rid of you." Grok finished for her, crouching so he didn't tower over her quite so intimidatingly. He didn't add that from the quality of her silk and the imperious tone that hadn't quite vanished alongside her dignity. Her father sounded rather unpleasant. The girl stared at him, eyes wide. Then she noticed what he held in his hand. A tulip, a particularly fine red one that Grok had been intending to plant next to the white lilies for a stunning contrast. "You stole that! Give that back, you thief!" Grok blinked slowly at her. An accusation of thievery regarding a flower didn't sit well, especially when he'd grown it himself from seed. "This grew from my garden," he grumbled, his voice low and rumbling. He held out the flower, intending to gently set it back amongst the leaves near her. She recoiled as if he'd swung an axe, letting out another startled cry. "Don't come any closer! Those ruffians will be here any moment! They'll make you pay for your crimes, monster!" It took Grok a moment to process that he was the monster in this situation. Monster. The word didn't bother him much. It was true he was an orc after all, massive, green, with jutting tusks, and a face that frightened small children. But it always stung slightly, a reminder he didn't belong, even if he never wanted to. "Ruffians know like flowers," he pointed out, gesturing towards the bandits. They were getting closer, their guttural shouts drifting through the trees. Clearly they hadn't spotted his carefully concealed hut, nestled amongst the birch trees. Of course they don't." The girl seemed baffled by his logic. "They are evil men. What do evil men care for such frivolous things?" Grok shrugged. "Evil men usually want gold. Or food. Not flowers." He held the tulip out again. "Take this. Might be useful." "Useful? How?" She eyed the flower suspiciously, her perfect nose crinkling in distaste. Before Grok could explain, a rough voice boomed behind them. "There she is, lads. The little princess thought to escape, did she?" A burly man with a thick beard and missing teeth stepped into view, a wicked gleam in his eye. Grok sighed. It seemed his day of peaceful gardening was definitely over. He stood, Truffles snorting indignantly beside him. The bandits surged forward, their eyes widening in surprise when they caught sight of their target's monstrous protector. Well, fancy escort you got there, princess," the burly bandit sneered. "Shame he can't save you from us." Something flickered in the girl's pale eyes, something that looked a lot like calculation. Grok tensed. He was strong, but 6 against 1 were bad odds. Even worse when those 6 held weapons designed to cause pain. "You are mistaken," the girl said, her voice surprisingly steady. She drew herself up as straight as her tattered dress would allow, lifting her chin with a surprising air of regality. "This is no escort, but my loyal servant Grok. He'll break all your bones for daring to threaten me." She snatched the tulip from Grok's hand. For a moment the bewildered bandits simply stared. Then the leader let out a booming laugh. "Break our bones, will he, flower boy? Come on then, you green beast. Show us what you're made of." Grok shuffled uncomfortably. He'd never been good at fighting. He wasn't built for speed or aggression, far more suited to coaxing plants from the earth than delivering a powerful blow. He eyed the distance between them, the path winding through his beloved garden. Inspiration struck. "Wait!" he yelled, holding up his hands. "This is important flower, one of a kind, magical." Now the bandits looked interested. The burly one stepped closer, his leer widening. "Magical, is it? Worth a lot, then. Might be useful for a ransom." "Very magical," Grok confirmed, stalling for time as his mind raced. "Makes the eater strong like 10 men." This caught their full attention. The men exchanged greedy glances. 10 men, eh? The leader smirked, his hand creeping towards the crude sword belted at his waist. "But must eat it carefully," Grok warned, waving the tulip slowly. "Right way, you get strength. Wrong way." He faltered for dramatic effect. The girl, bless her, picked up the cue. You could turn into a frog," she blurted out, eyes darting around them. This gave them pause. The burly man scowled. "Or it's a trick and you're just trying to fool us." "Or it makes your ears fall off," Grok added helpfully, knowing full well that tulips possessed no such properties. Still, it was worth a try to sow doubt. The men shared uncertain glances. Orcish magic was strange and unpredictable after all. Greed warred with uncertainty on their faces. "Princess," Grok said loudly, turning slightly away from the bandits, "if they promise not to hurt us, could I bring the flower into your tent? There are special words, instructions." The girl swallowed, and even through the dirt Grok could see her face pale. But she held her head high. "Of course, Grok. I trust you implicitly. Fetch the flower and do be careful." With exaggerated care, Grok moved past the uncertain bandits, a plan taking shape in his mind. If he could buy a bit more time, maybe. He ducked into the concealed entrance of his hut. Inside, the air hung heavy with the smell of dried herbs and the warm, earthy scent of his prized mushroom collection. His eyes immediately fell on his most potent tool, a bag hanging from a rafter, filled with a vibrant blue powder. It was pollen from the slumber bloom, his most peculiar flower, not dangerous, but those exposed to its dust tended to fall into a snoring, blissful sleep for hours. He'd only made it for his own curiosity, a way to deal with the occasional bout of insomnia. But it might just save them now. The girl was doing an admirable job of stalling the bandits. Her voice carried through the thin walls of the hut, imperious and trembling with what he hoped was well-feigned fear. Grok carefully picked his way back out of the hut, his footsteps muffled by thick moss. The bandits focused wholly on the princess. None seemed to notice him creeping around the side of the hut, a generous handful of slumber-bloom pollen clutched in his fist. He hesitated, heart thudding. If this went wrong, they'd both be in worse trouble than before. Then again, Grok was no coward. He'd always hated bullies and thieves. Besides, he rather liked the princess and her ridiculous insistence on his strength. Perhaps they could pull off this absurd plan after all. Taking a deep breath, Grok burst back into the clearing. "I have it," he announced, "but you must close your eyes." He puffed out his chest, trying to look as imposing as possible. Their suspicion returned. Greed, however, won out once more. "And why should we do that, beast?" The burly leader snarled, but there was a tremor in his voice. Orcish tricks were not to be underestimated. "If I see the magic, the flower won't work," Grok said firmly, trying to ignore the way every instinct screamed at him to run back inside. The girl, bless her courage, played along. "Grok is right. There are delicate forces at work here. You wouldn't understand. Best to obey if you want a prize as powerful as this." The bandits exchanged nervous glances. Finally, the leader grunted, "Right then, lads, shut those peepers. But any funny business, and your heads are rolling, that clear?" They shut their eyes, screwing their faces tight with mistrust. Grok held back a snort of relief. Now came the tricky part. "Princess, open your mouth," he instructed. She did so without hesitation, trusting him somehow despite their brief acquaintance. He tossed the tulip at her feet, then with a mighty heave flung the blue powder into the air. A vibrant cloud enveloped the bandits, momentarily obscuring them from view. They coughed, spluttered, then their voices faded into confused grunts. Grok scooped up the princess. "Run!" he roared. She didn't argue. They bolted into the trees, Truffles lumbering at their heels. Grok knew every hidden path, every dip and rise of the terrain. Blind and confused, the bandits were no match for his knowledge of his home. Their pursuers' shouts grew fainter, replaced by the frantic drumming of their own hearts. They pounded through the thickets, the girl gasping for breath but refusing to slow her pace. It wasn't until the sun started to dip towards the horizon that Grok found a safe place to stop. They collapsed in a hidden grotto, a carpet of moss cushioning their fall. The princess curled into a ball, ragged breaths finally beginning to subside. Grok looked at her, a strange wave of protectiveness washing over him. "You're not a princess, are you?" he said quietly. She peeked through a tangle of hair, a half-embarrassed, half-mischievous smile playing on her lips. "Well, not a proper princess," she admitted, "more like a runaway apprentice to a terribly fussy herbalist. I always wanted to see the world outside the castle walls, but I never expected it to be quite this exciting." Grok chuckled, a deep rumble in his chest. "You were very brave. Telling them I was your servant?" She blushed. "You did save me, Grok. I owe you a great deal." Truffles snuffled at the girl, nudging her gently with her broad snout. She reached out a hesitant hand to stroke the boar's bristly coat. "I haven't felt so alive in months," she admitted, a hint of amazement in her voice. "The castle. It was so stifling. I don't think I can go back." Grok nodded in understanding. He'd felt that stifling feeling too in the rare villages he ventured into. An unspoken agreement passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of shared spirits seeking a different kind of life. They spent the night huddled in the grotto, sharing jerky and dried berries from Grok's stores, along with stories of their lives. The girl, whose name turned out to be Ilara, spoke with surprising wisdom about plants and healing, her words weaving a tapestry of knowledge he'd never encountered before. Grok, in turn, shared tales of his garden, the rhythms of the forest, and the strange habits of the creatures of the valley. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Ilara looked at him with a newfound determination. "Your garden. It's beautiful, Grok. Peaceful. You haven't just tended plants. You've made a haven." She hesitated. "Perhaps I could stay. I know a great deal about herbs. Perhaps together we could—" Her words trailed off, but hope blossomed in her eyes. Grok felt a warmth spreading through him. The idea was wild, even slightly ridiculous. A runaway herbalist apprentice and a flower-loving orc living together. And yet, it felt strangely right. "There's always room for more flowers," he said gruffly, then cleared his throat. "And an extra pair of hands couldn't hurt. Though," he added, with a mischievous grin, "you'll have to find a better dress for digging." She laughed then, a warm bubbling sound that echoed around the grotto. "A small price to pay for freedom," she declared, reaching out to clasp his enormous hand in hers. And so their unlikely adventure continued, not in a quest for crowns or conquest, but in the quiet joy of a thriving garden, the companionship of an inquisitive boar, and the blooming friendship between an orc with a gentle heart and a spirited girl who yearned for a life less ordinary.